When successful entrepreneur Leon Martin is publicly accused of theft in an upscale store, his life spirals into chaos. As the media slanders his name and public judgment intensifies, Leon uncovers a web of lies that point to a betrayal within his inner circle. With his business on the brink of collapse and his family at risk, Leon must fight not only to clear his name, but also to expose the dangerous forces conspiring to ruin him. As time runs out, can Leon unearth the truth before he loses everything? Before we get started, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more exciting content, and let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Now, let's dive in. Leon Martin had always prided himself on his resilience. From his humble beginnings to becoming one of the most successful entrepreneurs in his city, he had faced countless obstacles, each one seemingly designed to test his strength. But he had overcome them all. Today, however, he was in a celebratory mood. It was his wife Amelia's birthday, and he was determined to get her something special. Something that would remind her of how much she meant to him. A necklace, perhaps. Or maybe a watch that sparkled like the future they had built together. He walked confidently into Arcadia, the most exclusive luxury store in town, with a sense of ease that came from years of hard work and success. The staff greeted him with polite smiles, though a few glances lingered longer than necessary. Leon was used to that. It wasn't uncommon for a successful black man like himself to draw extra attention in spaces like this. He brushed it off, focusing on his mission, finding the perfect gift. As he admired a sleek diamond necklace, his phone buzzed. It was Amelia, texting him a picture of their 2 daughters, grinning from ear to ear as they baked a cake. He smiled, imagining the chaos in the kitchen, and sent a quick reply. Just as he was about to turn back to the jewelry case, a loud voice echoed across the store. "Arrest him!" Leon's head snapped up, heart pounding. He blinked, trying to make sense of the situation. The manager, a tall, stern-looking woman with a sharp gaze, was pointing directly at him. He looked around, half expecting someone else to be the target of her outburst, but all eyes were on him. "Excuse me?" Leon asked, stepping forward. "You heard me," the manager said coldly. "Security, arrest this man. He's been caught stealing." The words hit him like a freight train. Stealing? He hadn't touched anything but his phone. His mind raced as he tried to process what was happening. Customers around him began whispering, some pulling out their phones to record the scene. His hands instinctively went up, palms open in a gesture of innocence. "I haven't stolen anything," Leon said, his voice calm but firm. "This is a misunderstanding." 2 burly security guards appeared, moving swiftly toward him. One of them grabbed his arm roughly. "Sir, we're going to have to ask you to come with us," one of them said, though his tone made it clear that it wasn't really a request. Panic surged through Leon's veins. He glanced around, looking for anyone who might back him up, but the other customers were either gawking or avoiding eye contact. The humiliation sank in deep as the cameras kept rolling. He could already see the headlines. "Black millionaire arrested for theft in luxury store." "You've got the wrong person," Leon insisted, his voice rising as adrenaline kicked in. "I didn't do anything." The manager's face was stone cold. "We have surveillance footage, sir. You're not going to talk your way out of this." Surveillance footage? Leon's mind scrambled for answers. He hadn't taken a single thing. There had to be some mistake. But the manager wasn't interested in hearing him out. Within moments, he was handcuffed, his wrists bound tightly as if he were some common criminal. The store fell into a deafening silence as Leon was marched out through the front doors. A crowd had gathered outside, their phones raised to capture every humiliating second. Leon could feel their eyes on him, judging, questioning, condemning. The disbelief was written all over his face, but it didn't matter. The damage was already done. Once outside, the blinding flashes of cameras greeted him. Reporters shouted questions, their microphones thrust toward him like weapons. "Leon Martin, why did you steal? Was this a publicity stunt gone wrong? Is this the end of your career?" His heart pounded in his chest as he was loaded into a police car, his world crumbling with each passing second. Everything he had built, his business, his reputation, his life, was slipping away right before his eyes. As the car sped away, his phone, still clutched in his hands, buzzed again. Another text from Amelia, this one more urgent. "Is everything okay?" Leon stared at the screen, numb. How was he supposed to tell his wife that he had just been accused of theft in front of everyone? How could he explain that in a matter of minutes his entire life had been turned upside down? When they reached the station, Leon was processed like any other suspect, photographed, fingerprinted, and led to a small, windowless interrogation room. He sat in the cold metal chair, his wrists now free but throbbing from the tight cuffs. His mind raced as he waited, trying to figure out how things had gone so horribly wrong. It didn't take long for the detectives to arrive. One of them, a middle-aged man with graying hair, sat across from him, his expression unreadable. "Mr. Martin," the detective began, "do you have any idea why you were accused of theft today?" Leon shook his head, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "I don't know. I went in there to buy a gift for my wife. That's it. I didn't steal anything." The detective leaned back in his chair, studying Leon carefully. "We've reviewed the security footage, and from what we can see, there's no clear evidence of you taking anything. But the manager seems very sure of her accusation." Leon clenched his fists, anger simmering. "That's because I didn't do it. This is ridiculous." The detective nodded slowly. "It's looking more like a misunderstanding, but you know how these things go. The media's already picked it up. It's all over the news." Leon's stomach twisted. Of course, the media would latch on to this. His name was already being dragged through the mud, and it hadn't even been 24 hours. "Look," Leon said, his voice low, "I need to fix this. My family, my business, it's all at stake." The detective stood, motioning for Leon to follow him. "Let's start by getting you out of here. You're free to go for now, but I suggest you get a good lawyer. This situation isn't going away quietly." Leon's mind raced as he stepped out into the night, free but far from unscathed. The battle to clear his name had just begun. Leon sat in the back seat of his car, staring blankly out the window as the city lights blurred past. His driver, sensing his boss's mood, remained silent, allowing Leon to stew in his thoughts. The events of the day kept replaying in his mind like a broken record, each memory sharper, more painful than the last. He clenched his fists, his knuckles whitening. He couldn't believe it had come to this. Publicly humiliated, accused of a crime he didn't commit, and the world already treating him like he was guilty. His phone buzzed again, another notification from a news outlet covering the theft scandal. The media had wasted no time spinning the story. Headlines painted him as a millionaire thief, a man who had everything but still wanted more. Leon felt a wave of nausea. How had it all fallen apart so quickly? Amelia's voice broke through his haze when he finally arrived home. She stood in the doorway, her expression a mixture of worry and confusion, their 2 daughters peeking out from behind her. Leon forced a smile for their sake, though he knew it didn't reach his eyes. "What happened?" Amelia asked, pulling him into a tight embrace as soon as the door closed behind him. The girls, sensing the tension, retreated upstairs without a word. The silence was heavy, and Leon knew they'd heard about the incident at school, or worse, seen it online. His image, their family's image, was being torn apart, and there was no easy way to shield them from the fallout. Leon sighed, rubbing a hand over his face as he sat down on the couch. "It was a setup, Amelia. I didn't do anything. They accused me out of nowhere." Amelia sat next to him, her hands gripping his. "I know you didn't, but why? Why would they do this? What do they have to gain?" Leon shook his head, staring at the floor. "I don't know yet, but it feels personal, like someone's trying to take me down. The way the manager acted, it wasn't just about a misunderstanding. She was convinced I was guilty before I even opened my mouth." Amelia frowned, her eyes narrowing as she tried to piece it together. "Have you talked to anyone yet? A lawyer? Someone who can help us get ahead of this?" Leon nodded. "I've been thinking about Jennifer Stone. You remember her, right? She helped me with that contract dispute last year. She's tough and she doesn't take any nonsense. I'm going to call her first thing in the morning." The name brought some relief to Amelia's face. "Jennifer's good. If anyone can clear your name, it's her. But Leon, this isn't just about the legal side. This is everywhere." She gestured vaguely at her phone on the coffee table. "People are talking. They're making assumptions, calling you a thief. I've already seen people we know, business partners, acquaintances, distancing themselves." Leon's chest tightened at the thought. His reputation, his life's work, was disintegrating in real time. He had fought tooth and nail to get where he was, building his company from the ground up, providing jobs for hundreds, if not thousands, of people. And now, one accusation threatened to destroy all of it. "I know," he muttered, "but I'm not gonna let them win. We're gonna fight this." Amelia squeezed his hand. "We'll fight it together, whatever it takes." The next morning, Leon's resolve hardened as he sat in Jennifer Stone's office. Jennifer, a sharp, no-nonsense attorney with a reputation for winning impossible cases, listened intently as he recounted the events of the previous day. Her expression remained neutral, though her eyes flickered with interest as he described the manager's behavior. "This is definitely more than just a misunderstanding," Jennifer said, leaning back in her chair once Leon had finished. "It sounds like they were waiting for you, or at least knew you'd be there. The fact that they accused you so publicly, with no solid evidence, suggests there's something else at play." Leon nodded, feeling the same knot of unease twist in his gut. "Exactly. It felt deliberate, like they were trying to make an example out of me. And now the media's all over it." Jennifer tapped her pen against her notebook, her mind already racing through strategies. "We'll start by getting access to the store's security footage. If they're claiming you stole something, they'll need to back it up with video evidence. We'll also subpoena any internal communications from the store. There's a chance someone sent out orders to target you specifically." Leon frowned. "You think someone inside the store was in on it?" "It's possible," Jennifer replied, her tone measured. "But we won't know for sure until we dig deeper. Right now, we need to focus on clearing your name. The court of public opinion can be vicious, but if we win in the actual court, it'll go a long way toward restoring your reputation." Leon nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. "What about the media? They're already tearing me apart." Jennifer sighed, her expression softening slightly. "Unfortunately, we can't control the media, at least not directly. But we can counter their narrative with facts. Once we have enough evidence to prove your innocence, we'll hold a press conference, release statements, whatever it takes to get the truth out there." Leon took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the battle ahead. He was prepared to fight, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. There was something more to this, something deeper that he couldn't quite see yet. The rest of the day was spent preparing for what was to come. Jennifer worked tirelessly, contacting her team and setting the wheels in motion. Meanwhile, Leon returned to his office, where the atmosphere had noticeably shifted. His employees were quieter than usual, their eyes downcast as if they were unsure how to react to their boss's presence. Leon's assistant, Tanya, approached him hesitantly, holding a stack of messages. "Mr. Martin, you've been getting calls all morning, some from the press, but also from investors and clients. A few have expressed concerns." Leon's jaw clenched, though he forced himself to remain calm. "Thank you, Tanya. I'll handle it." As she left, Leon sank into his chair, staring at the messages piled on his desk. Concerns. The word gnawed at him, a polite way of saying they were losing faith in him. His mind raced through the possibilities. How many deals were at risk of falling through? How many partnerships were being reconsidered because of the accusation hanging over his head? Just then, his phone buzzed with a text from Alex, his longtime business partner and friend. The message was brief, but it left a sour taste in Leon's mouth. "Call me when you can. We need to talk." Leon stared at the screen, a feeling of unease settling in his chest. He and Alex had been through everything together, building their business from scratch. But lately, there had been tension. Subtle disagreements, changes in tone, but nothing Leon had paid much attention to, until now. What did Alex mean by "we need to talk"? Before he could dwell on it, his office door swung open, and Amelia walked in, her expression serious. "I just got a call," she said, her voice strained. "One of the parents at the girls' school. They said there are rumors going around that some of the other kids are teasing them, saying their dad's a thief." Leon's heart sank, his hands tightening into fists. He could deal with the media, with business partners questioning his integrity, but this, his daughters being dragged into it, that was a line he couldn't tolerate. "We'll fix this," he said, though his voice was thick with anger. "I'll fix it." Amelia sat down across from him, her eyes brimming with frustration and sadness. "I know you will. But Leon, This is bigger than just us now. This is everywhere. Leon's phone buzzed again, pulling him back to the present. He glanced at it, seeing Alex's name flash across the screen. His friend, his partner, was calling. Leon hesitated for a moment, then swiped to answer. "Alex," Leon said, his voice wary. "What's going on?" On the other end, Alex's voice was calm, but there was an edge to it that Leon couldn't ignore. "We need to meet, Leon. There are some things we need to discuss, about the business and about what's happening." Leon frowned, the unease growing. "What do you mean? What does this have to do with the business?" Alex hesitated for just a moment, but it was enough for Leon to feel the tension simmering beneath the surface. "It's complicated. Just meet me later tonight. I'll explain everything." Leon agreed, though his instincts were already on high alert. Something wasn't right. And as much as he didn't want to believe it, a dark thought began to creep into his mind. What if this wasn't just a misunderstanding? What if someone was trying to take him down, and Alex knew more than he was letting on? The air between Leon and Alex was thick with tension as they sat across from each other in the dimly lit restaurant later that evening. The place had once been a favorite of theirs, a cozy, high-end spot where they'd celebrated countless business successes. But tonight, the familiar ambiance felt off. Leon couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that had settled in his chest since Alex had called him earlier. Something was wrong, and he needed answers. Leon sipped his water, watching Alex carefully. His business partner, once so confident and carefree, now seemed distracted. His gaze darted around the room, and his usual easygoing smile was nowhere to be found. "What's this all about, Alex?" Leon asked, keeping his voice steady but firm. He didn't have time for games, not with everything that was happening. "You said there was something we needed to discuss." Alex cleared his throat, avoiding Leon's eyes. "Yeah, listen, Leon, I don't want to make things more difficult for you, especially with everything that's going on, but I've been hearing some things." Leon narrowed his eyes. "What kind of things?" "About the business," Alex continued, his voice low. "Some of our investors are starting to get spooked. They're worried about the company's reputation after, the incident at the store." Leon felt his temper flare, though he kept it under control. "The incident, as you call it, was a setup. I didn't do anything, and we're working on proving that. But why are you just now telling me investors are getting nervous?" Alex shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I've been trying to keep it under wraps, to keep everyone calm. But the media's been relentless, and a couple of the big names are threatening to pull out if we don't get ahead of this. They're worried about the optics." Leon's jaw clenched. He had expected some backlash from the business community, but hearing it from Alex stung more than he anticipated. They had been through so much together, built an empire from nothing. Now, in the face of this crisis, it seemed even Alex was wavering. "I get that people are nervous," Leon said, leaning forward, his voice low and intense. "But you and I both know I didn't steal anything. This is bigger than just one accusation. Someone's trying to tear me down, and we need to figure out who's behind it." Alex nodded, though his expression remained unreadable. "I know, Leon. I believe you. But you have to understand, this is business. People are going to act in their own self-interest. We have to think about how to protect the company, too." Leon leaned back, a bitter taste in his mouth. "I've been thinking about the company since day one. I've sacrificed everything to build it, and now someone's coming for my reputation, trying to take it all away. What I need from you is loyalty, Alex. We need to be a united front, especially now." For a brief moment, Alex's expression softened, as if he wanted to say something important but couldn't bring himself to do it. Instead, he hesitated, then quickly changed the subject. "I get that, man. I do. Look, let's just keep moving forward. Let Jennifer do her thing, and we'll deal with the investors once we have more information. I've got your back." Leon nodded, though he couldn't shake the feeling that Alex was holding something back. The conversation shifted to more routine business matters, but the unease between them remained, like a shadow lingering just out of sight. By the time Leon left the restaurant, the knot of suspicion in his stomach had only grown tighter. Back at home, the situation was no less tense. Amelia was sitting on the couch, her laptop open as she scrolled through article after article about the incident. The media's coverage had only intensified over the past 24 hours. Headlines screamed, "Millionaire thief" and "Luxury store scandal, entrepreneur arrested." Leon winced at the sight of his own face plastered across the screen. "It's getting worse," Amelia said, looking up from her screen. "People are already jumping to conclusions, saying you must have done something. It's like they've forgotten everything you've ever done, how hard you've worked to get here." Leon sighed, sitting down beside her. "I know. It's like none of it matters anymore. One accusation, and suddenly everything I've built is on the verge of crumbling." Amelia closed her laptop, taking his hand. "We'll get through this. Jennifer is on it, and once the truth comes out, people will see that you were set up. They have to." Leon wished he could believe it was that simple, but a part of him knew that clearing his name wouldn't undo the damage that had already been done. Reputation was a fragile thing, easily shattered and nearly impossible to fully rebuild. Still, he couldn't afford to wallow in despair. He had a family to protect, a company to save, and a mystery to unravel. The next day, Jennifer called with news. Leon immediately headed to her office, anxious to hear what she had found. As he entered, Jennifer greeted him with a serious expression. "We've got the security footage from the store," she said, gesturing for Leon to sit down. "And there are some things you need to see." Leon's heart raced as Jennifer pulled up the video on her computer. The footage showed him walking into the store, browsing the jewelry cases and looking at his phone. Everything seemed normal at first, but then Jennifer paused the video at a crucial moment. "Watch closely," she said, hitting play again. Leon leaned forward, eyes fixed on the screen. As the footage resumed, he saw himself standing by the jewelry case, but something was off. Another man, dressed similarly to Leon, entered the frame. The man hovered nearby, almost blending into the background. At first glance, he seemed unremarkable, but then he did something strange. He slipped a small object from the display case into his pocket, right as Leon was turning away. "Wait," Leon said, his brow furrowing. "Who is that?" "We don't know yet," Jennifer said, pausing the footage again. "But here's the kicker. After this guy slips the item into his pocket, he leaves the store through the back exit. The manager doesn't even look at him. Instead, she heads straight for you and accuses you of theft." Leon stared at the screen, his blood boiling. "So they had me arrested while the real thief walked out without anyone noticing?" Jennifer nodded. "It gets worse. I looked into the store's internal communications, and guess what? There's no record of the manager reporting the theft to anyone before she called for security. It's almost like she was waiting for you." Leon sat back, his mind racing. This wasn't random. Someone set this up. They knew I'd be there, and they'd planned this. Jennifer folded her arms, her face grim. "That's what it looks like, and I've got a feeling this mystery man isn't just some random thief. I think he's part of the setup." Leon clenched his fists. It was clear now, this wasn't just a simple misunderstanding or a case of mistaken identity. Someone had orchestrated this entire ordeal, and they had gone to great lengths to make sure Leon would take the fall. But who? And why? Jennifer leaned forward, her voice lowering. "There's more. I've been digging into your business records, trying to see if there's anyone who stands to gain from your downfall. And I hate to say this, Leon, but some things aren't adding up. Your partner, Alex, he's been making some moves behind the scenes." Leon felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean?" "He's been meeting with a few of your investors privately," Jennifer explained, her tone careful. "And from what I can gather, he's been positioning himself as the one to take control of the company if things go south for you." Leon's stomach dropped. He had suspected something was off, but hearing it confirmed like this was a gut punch. Alex, his friend, his business partner, was preparing to step into his shoes if the scandal ruined him. Leon stood up, pacing the room as anger and betrayal coursed through him. "You're telling me Alex has been planning for this? He's just waiting for me to fail so he can swoop in and take everything I've built?" Jennifer stood as well, placing a hand on his arm. "It's not definitive yet, Leon, but we need to be careful. There's more going on here than we thought, and until we know who's really pulling the strings, we can't trust anyone." Leon's mind was spinning, the weight of the betrayal sinking in. He had trusted Alex with everything, his business, his vision, his loyalty. And now it seemed like Alex had been playing a dangerous game all along, setting Leon up for a fall. Leon clenched his fists, his jaw tightening with determination. I'm not going down without a fight. If Alex thinks he can take everything from me, he's got another thing coming. Jennifer nodded. We'll get to the bottom of this. But be careful, Leon. Whoever's behind this is playing a long game, and they're not going to stop until they've destroyed you. Leon's mind was made up. He was going to clear his name, expose the conspiracy, and take back control of his life. No matter what it took. Leon stood outside Alex's office building, his breath misting in the cold evening air. The towering glass structure loomed above him, a symbol of everything they had built together. Yet now, as he stared up at the building, it felt like a monument to betrayal. His heart pounded in his chest as he replayed Jennifer's words in his mind. Alex, his friend and partner, had been secretly positioning himself to take over the company, using the scandal as his opportunity to rise. The thought twisted like a knife in Leon's gut. It had been a long day. Interviews with lawyers, calls to investors trying to stem the tide of doubt, and, most of all, the weight of the unfolding conspiracy pressing down on him. But now, standing here, he knew there was no more room for doubt. He needed answers. He needed to confront Alex and get the truth, no matter how painful it was. Leon clenched his fists, steeling himself as he walked through the revolving doors of the building. He nodded briefly at the receptionist who glanced at him with a mix of surprise and unease, clearly having heard the rumors swirling around town. But Leon ignored her look. His focus was singular now. Is Mr. B. Carter still in his office? Leon asked, his voice tight. The receptionist nodded quickly. Yes, sir. He hasn't left yet. Without waiting for further explanation, Leon strode toward the elevators, his heart thudding louder with each step. As the doors slid open, he felt a wave of conflicting emotions: anger, sadness, disbelief. This was Alex, the man who had stood beside him through every triumph and setback, who had once been like a brother. How had things gotten to this point? When he reached the top floor, the air felt colder, more sterile. Alex's office was just down the hall, the large frosted glass doors a barrier to the truth Leon was about to uncover. He paused for a brief moment, taking a deep breath before pushing them open. Alex was sitting at his desk, his back turned as he stared out over the city skyline. The room was bathed in the soft glow of the city lights, casting long shadows across the walls. For a brief moment, Leon felt a pang of nostalgia. How many times had they sat here, dreaming up plans for their future, believing that nothing could come between them? But those days were gone. The betrayal was real, and Leon wasn't leaving without answers. Alex turned in his chair, clearly startled by Leon's sudden appearance. His eyes widened for a moment, then narrowed, his expression shifting to one of cautious politeness. Leon, Alex said, his voice measured. What are you doing here? It's late. Leon shut the door behind him with more force than necessary, crossing the room in a few quick strides until he was standing directly in front of Alex's desk. He glared down at his business partner, his fists clenched at his sides. We need to talk, Leon said, his voice low but filled with fury. Alex leaned back in his chair, raising an eyebrow. About what? Leon's jaw tightened. He wasn't going to let Alex play games with him. Not now. Don't act like you don't know what this is about. I know everything, Alex. I know you've been meeting with our investors behind my back, positioning yourself to take over the company if things go south for me. Alex's expression remained neutral, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Guilt, or perhaps just fear of being caught. You've got it all wrong, Leon. I'm just trying to protect the business. We've been facing a lot of pressure since the incident, and the investors need reassurance. I'm doing what I have to do to keep things stable. Leon shook his head, his voice rising. Don't lie to me. You've been preparing for this for a long time, haven't you? You saw an opportunity to take over, and you've been waiting for the right moment to strike. The theft accusation, the media circus, all of it, it's part of your plan, isn't it? Alex stood up, his calm facade finally breaking. You're paranoid, Leon. You've been under a lot of stress, and now you're starting to see enemies where there aren't any. I've been nothing but loyal to you. Loyal? Leon spat, his anger boiling over. You've been meeting with investors in secret. You've been planning for my downfall while pretending to have my back. That's not loyalty, Alex. That's betrayal. For a moment, neither of them spoke, the tension in the room thick enough to cut with a knife. Alex's face darkened, his expression hardening into something far less familiar. He stepped out from behind the desk, closing the distance between them until they were almost face to face. Betrayal? Alex repeated, his voice low and dangerous. You want to talk about betrayal, Leon? How about the fact that I've been carrying this company on my back while you've been out playing the hero, making speeches about how you built everything yourself? You think people don't see the cracks in your perfect little image? They do. And I've been the one keeping this whole thing from collapsing. Leon stared at Alex, stunned by the venom in his voice. This wasn't just business for Alex. There was something deeper, something far more personal. Is that what this is about? Leon asked, his voice quieter now, a mix of hurt and disbelief. You're jealous? You think I've been taking all the credit? Alex sneered. You're damn right I do. You walk around like you're some self-made success story. But we both know that you wouldn't be where you are without me. I've been pulling the strings behind the scenes, making the deals, keeping the investors happy, while you've been busy soaking up the spotlight. And now, with this scandal, you've made the entire company vulnerable. I had to step in, Leon. If I didn't, we'd both go down. Leon took a step back, feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under him. He had known that there was tension between them, that things hadn't been perfect lately, but he hadn't realized just how deep Alex's resentment ran. You could have come to me, Leon said, his voice laced with frustration. If you felt like that, you could have talked to me. We built this together, Alex. We were supposed to trust each other. Trust? Alex scoffed. Trust doesn't get you anywhere in this world, Leon. Power does. Control does. And right now, you're losing both. You're bleeding out, and everyone around you knows it. I didn't cause this. You did, the moment you got careless. Leon's chest tightened as Alex's words sank in. Was this really how it had all come down? Years of friendship, of loyalty, all crumbling in the face of greed and ambition? Is that why you did it? Leon asked, his voice quiet but seething with anger. Is that why you set me up? Alex's eyes flickered with a moment of confusion. Set you up? What are you talking about? Leon took a step closer, glaring at his former friend. The theft accusation, the media storm, the so-called evidence they had against me. It wasn't just a coincidence, Alex. Someone wanted me out of the picture, and I'm starting to think it was you. For the first time, a flicker of real fear crossed Alex's face. Leon, I didn't. Don't lie to me, Leon snapped, cutting him off. You had the most to gain. If I went down, you'd be in control. The investors would rally behind you, and you'd have the company to yourself. Alex raised his hands defensively. I didn't set you up, Leon. I swear. I might have been preparing for the worst, but I didn't orchestrate this. I didn't need to. You were already on a downward spiral. I just adapted. Leon stared at him, trying to decipher the truth in his words. It was possible that Alex hadn't been the one to directly set the plan in motion, but he had certainly benefited from it. Whether he had orchestrated the setup or simply taken advantage of the situation didn't matter anymore. The trust between them was shattered. You adapted, Leon repeated bitterly. I see. There was a long, heavy silence between them. Alex looked away, his face hardening once more. Look, we both made mistakes, but if you think I'm going to let you take this company down with you, you're wrong. Leon felt a surge of fury at Alex's words, but he knew that arguing further would get them nowhere. The betrayal had been laid bare, and there was no going back from it. I'm not going down, Alex, Leon said quietly, his voice filled with determination. And neither is the company. But you're finished. Alex's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Leon stepped toward the door, turning back one last time. It means I'm not giving up. I'm going to clear my name, and when I do, everyone will know exactly who you are. With that, Leon walked out of the office, his mind reeling from the confrontation. The man he had once trusted more than anyone had betrayed him, and now he had to face the reality that Alex had been playing a different game all along. But Leon wasn't done fighting, not by a long shot. As he stepped into the cool night air, Leon's resolve hardened. He had lost a friend, but he wasn't about to lose everything else. He would find the person behind the setup, whether it was Alex or someone else, and he would take back control of his life. And when the truth finally came out, he would make sure the whole world knew who had tried to destroy him. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension as Leon sat at the defense table, his heart pounding in his chest. It had been weeks since the confrontation with Alex, and now everything was coming to a head. The trial had been grueling, with the media circling like vultures and public opinion swaying against him. Leon had endured it all. Every accusation, every dirty look, every whispered conversation about his supposed guilt. But today, it would all come down to this, the verdict. Leon glanced to his right, where his lawyer, Jennifer Stone, sat flipping through her notes. She had been a relentless force throughout the trial, tearing through the prosecution's flimsy evidence and uncovering the inconsistencies in the store manager's testimony. The video footage, the mysterious man who had slipped the item into his pocket, and the revelation that the store manager had been in contact with outside parties before the incident, had all played in Leon's favor. But there was still a lingering doubt in his mind, a nagging fear that the jury, influenced by the media storm, might not see the truth. On the other side of the courtroom, the prosecution team looked more confident than they should have. They had painted Leon as a man who had everything and still wanted more, a narrative that had stuck with much of the public. But as Jennifer had systematically dismantled their case, it became clear that there was something darker at play. Leon's eyes flicked to the front row of the gallery, where Amelia sat with their daughters. Amelia gave him a small, encouraging smile, but Leon could see the worry etched in her face. His daughters sat quietly beside her, their eyes wide as they took in the gravity of the moment. They had been through so much already, the teasing at school, the whispers behind their backs, the constant news stories about their father. Leon's heart ached for them, knowing that they had been dragged into something they never should have had to face. His mind drifted briefly to Alex. After their confrontation, Leon had distanced himself from his former business partner, cutting off all communication. Alex had insisted that he hadn't set Leon up, but the damage was done. Whether Alex had been directly involved or not, his actions had shown that he was willing to step into Leon's place the moment he thought Leon was finished. That betrayal had cut deeper than anything else, and Leon knew their friendship was over for good. The sound of the gavel brought Leon back to the present. The judge entered the courtroom, and the jury filed in behind him, their faces unreadable. Leon's stomach twisted as the foreperson stood, holding the piece of paper that contained his fate. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" the judge asked, his voice booming through the silent courtroom. The foreperson nodded. "We have, Your Honor." Leon's heart pounded so loudly in his chest he thought it might drown out the words. Every second seemed to stretch into an eternity as the foreperson unfolded the paper and cleared his throat. "In the case of State v. Leon Martin, on the charge of theft, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty." The words seemed to hang in the air for a moment before they fully registered. Not guilty. A wave of relief crashed over Leon, so powerful that he almost felt dizzy. He gripped the edge of the table, his body trembling as the weight of the past few weeks began to lift. The courtroom erupted into a flurry of murmurs, but Leon barely heard them. All he could think about was the fact that he had been exonerated. His name was cleared. Amelia rushed toward him, tears in her eyes as she wrapped her arms around him. Their daughters followed, and Leon pulled them all into a tight embrace. He could feel the relief in their small bodies, the tension that had been gripping them for so long finally starting to melt away. Jennifer, ever composed, placed a hand on Leon's shoulder. "We did it," she said, though there was no need for her to say it. Leon knew she had been the key to his victory. Without her, he might not have stood a chance. "Thank you," Leon whispered, his voice choked with emotion, "for everything." Jennifer gave him a small nod. "This was never just about winning the case. It was about clearing your name, and we did that. But this fight isn't over yet. Whoever set you up is still out there." Leon nodded, the relief of the moment mingling with a renewed sense of purpose. Jennifer was right. The person or people who had orchestrated this entire mess were still at large, and while his legal battle was over, the quest for justice wasn't. He had been proven innocent, but that didn't mean the ones responsible would go unpunished. Later that evening, Leon sat in the quiet of his living room, surrounded by his family. The glow of the fireplace filled the room with warmth, but there was a lingering tension in the air. The trial might have been over, but the scars it had left behind were still fresh. Leon's daughters had finally fallen asleep, their heads resting on Amelia's lap as she stroked their hair. Amelia looked over at Leon, her expression soft yet serious. "We made it through," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I know this isn't the end, is it?" Leon shook his head. "No, it's not. Someone wanted to destroy me, and they almost succeeded. I need to find out who it was, Amelia. I can't rest until I know." Amelia sighed, her hand stilling on their daughter's hair. "I understand, but promise me one thing, don't let this consume you. You've already been through so much. We've been through so much. I don't want to lose you to this." Leon reached out and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "You won't lose me, I promise. But I can't let this go, not after everything that's happened." Amelia nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. "I'll stand by you, whatever happens next." The next few weeks were a blur of press conferences, interviews, and statements. Leon's exoneration had made headlines, and the media had shifted its tone, now portraying him as the victim of a malicious setup. The story of his innocence spread quickly, and soon those who had once distanced themselves from him were suddenly eager to reconnect. But Leon wasn't interested in reclaiming his place in the spotlight. He was focused on one thing: finding the person behind the setup. Jennifer, true to her word, had continued her investigation. With the legal battle behind them, she had more resources at her disposal and was determined to uncover the truth. Leon spent hours with her, going over every detail of the case, revisiting every conversation, every business deal, every meeting that might have been connected to the setup. One night, just as Leon was starting to feel like they were chasing shadows, Jennifer called with a breakthrough. "I've found something," she said, her voice crackling with urgency over the phone. "It's not Alex. I mean, he's a snake, but he wasn't the mastermind behind the setup." Leon's pulse quickened. "Then who was it?" "There's a connection between the store manager and a competitor of yours, someone who's been gunning for your company for years. I think they've been pulling strings behind the scenes, using the manager as a pawn to discredit you." Leon felt his blood run cold. "Who?" Jennifer hesitated for a moment before speaking. "It's Marcus Devlin." The name hit Leon like a freight train. Marcus Devlin was one of his oldest rivals, a businessman who had made his fortune in the same industry, but had never achieved the same level of success as Leon. They had clashed before, but Leon had never thought Marcus would stoop this low. "I should have known," Leon muttered, anger boiling inside him. "Devlin's been trying to take me down for years. This was just another play for power." Jennifer's voice was calm but firm. "We have enough evidence to go after him. It's not just circumstantial. Devlin was in direct contact with the store manager before the accusation. He orchestrated the whole thing." Leon's grip tightened on the phone. "Then let's take him down." A few weeks later, Leon stood outside the courthouse once again, this time not as a defendant, but as a man seeking justice. Marcus Devlin had been arrested on charges of conspiracy, fraud, and defamation. The evidence Jennifer had uncovered was damning, and it was clear that Devlin had been the puppet master behind the entire setup, driven by jealousy and a desire to see Leon fail. As he stood there, surrounded by reporters and cameras, Leon felt a sense of closure. He had been dragged through the mud, his reputation nearly destroyed, but in the end, the truth had come to light. He had been vindicated, and those who had sought to ruin him were now facing the consequences of their actions. But more than that, Leon had learned something invaluable about himself, about resilience, about the strength of his family, and about the cost of success. He had been tested in ways he had never imagined, but he had emerged stronger, more determined, and more focused than ever. As the crowd began to disperse, Leon took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past months finally lift from his shoulders. He looked up at the sky, the sun breaking through the clouds, and smiled. He had won. Against the odds, against the system, against those who had tried to bring him down. But most importantly, he had found his way back to what truly mattered: his family, his integrity, and the unbreakable bond between them. Months had passed since the trial, and life was slowly returning to normal for Leon and his family. His business had recovered, stronger than ever, with investors and clients rallying behind him after the truth had come out. His daughters were back in school, their lives no longer overshadowed by whispers of scandal. And Amelia, always by his side, had been his rock through it all. One evening, as Leon sat in his home office, reviewing some contracts, he paused to reflect on everything that had happened. The ordeal had been brutal, but it had also been a reminder of the importance of resilience, trust, and standing up for what's right. A knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts, and Amelia peeked her head in, smiling. "You coming to bed soon?" Leon smiled back, standing up and walking toward her. "Yeah, I'm done for the night." As they walked down the hallway together, hand in hand, Leon felt a sense of peace that he hadn't known in a long time. The storm had passed, and he was ready to move forward, stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. The future was bright, and for the first time in a long time, Leon felt truly free. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this story, don't miss the next one. Click on the video now to watch. We appreciate your support, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.